This is a very simplified specification for calculation of number of settlement days after a securities transaction, before the securities are delivered and paid for. For cash clients, or if the securities are money market or treasury bills, settlement is always the same day, so settlement days is 0. Other securities used to settle in 5 days before June 7, 1995, but settle in 3 days now. You may wonder why we need to worry about pre-1995 calculations, but portfolio accounting records are kept forever, and you need to know how things were done in the past. That's true for all accounting calculations, really, though with most accounting you don't need to go back 20 years. This is the calculation for settlement days, which will be type integer. First, we need a conditional statement. The condition is if any of the following Boolean conditions are true. If it's a cash client, if security type is money market, or if the security type is treasury bills. In that case, the result is an integer 0, meaning 0 settlement days. Otherwise, we need an additional condition, and that is if a variable called transaction date is less than June 7, 1995. In that case, the result is integer 5, otherwise integer 3. If you're a programming geek like me, you've probably noticed that I've used a model of programming called functional programming, which Wikipedia says makes it much easier to understand and predict the behavior of a program. Once you have a valid calculation, green check mark appears at the top, and test cases are automatically generated. You can press the Run Tests button to run these tests, and the green check marks indicate that they've been run successfully. The inputs are generated automatically by analyzing the calculation. The Boolean is cash client, security type, and transaction date. And then you also have the chance to enter the value you expect, and it shows the value that the algorithm produced. And if they're the same, you get a green check mark. So for cash client, it's always 0. Or if it's not cash client but security type is money market or treasury bills, that's also 0. But if it's not cash client and security type is something else, like stocks, and the date is June 7th, 1995, it's 3 days. But if it's before that, June 6th, 1995, it's 5 days. To show how the test cases work, you can change the algorithm and run your tests again. You see that the tests that depend on treasury bills and stocks have changed their outputs and are flagged as incorrect. Change that back to the correct value and run the test again, and the test passed now. Likewise, if you change one of the values and run your tests, the ones that depend on that value are shown as invalid. Put it back to the correct value and run your tests. Now your tests are showing this value. Using functional programming with a text-based language often results in very long expressions. For example, the JavaScript generated for the settlement days calculation, which is here in the lower right of the screen, is one long line of code. Normally you need an IQ of 150 or so to program like this in a text-based language. But using visual programming such as Blockly allows mere mortals, such as myself and possibly even business analysts, to get the benefits of the functional programming model. I don't propose using functional programming for whole systems, though that may come sooner than most people think. But for now, using visual programming for functional programming of business logic seems ideal. In my experience, the correctness and maintenance of business logic in software, as opposed to a lot of the housekeeping that takes place in software, using visual programming for that part of the development seems ideal. In my experience, the correctness and maintenance of business logic in software is a huge pain point for most businesses, and using Blockly for functional expression of business calculations would make it possible for businesses to bring this situation under control.